Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and as this weekend approaches, the realization that the roster is going to be trimmed to its final form, it's becoming evident. Flores stated that most of the starters aren't even going to play. So, in essence, this weekend's game against the Bengals is purely an opportunity for guys on the bubble to make a name for themselves and earn that final spot. It's going to be exciting, and today we're going to go through the team, the entire roster, and see who has that spot locked up and who needs to show out in Cincy in order to make their case. This is going to be a fun one. Let's dive in.
Under the leadership of Coach Flores, the Dolphins doubled their number of wins from the previous year.
10-6 on the season. Remarkable turnaround for Brian Flores and his staff.
Loaded with young and dynamic talent.
What a play.
This Miami team is determined to restore its proud winning tradition.
That was us, bro. Let's get it, man. And let's go out there and dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
How about this football team, though, huh?
It's been really a collective effort by everybody.
For the Miami Dolphins, it's easy to see. It's all coming together.
Brian Flores told the media that he has come to a decision on how he wants to handle the reps for the third and final preseason game. It's going to be different across the league how coaches choose to handle this because we are sort of in uncharted waters with only 3 preseason games. Some teams, they're going to play their starters for a drive or two, and others, like the Dolphins, will instead let their young guys play to see who can earn a spot on the final 53. So speaking of the Dolphins and the roster, let's jump into it. Starting with the quarterback position, this one's probably the easiest. Tua Tagovailoa is going to start, and then this weekend, we're going to get a healthy dose of Jacoby Brissett and Reid Sinnett. Jacoby is likely going to play the entire first half, while Reid Sinnett plays the whole second. That's just a guess, but generally, having 2 quarterbacks play, that's really how the breakdown goes. But based on what we know about these players, Jacoby is more refined and frankly has a more natural talent at the quarterback position. So in all likelihood, it's going to be him and Tua on the final roster, with Reid Sinnett being signed to the practice squad, ready to step up in case of injury. It's great to have someone on your practice squad at the quarterback position who spent the entire offseason learning your offense. So in case of catastrophe and you need to pull someone up, at least you don't have to give him a crash course on the entire scheme. But having Jacoby as the backup, that isn't necessarily the case. And frankly, that's what makes the preseason exciting. Because if Reid goes out there and clearly outperforms Brissett, I mean, Reid's cheaper and younger, so why couldn't he earn the backup spot? It's all in his hands, but if I were a betting man, I'd have my money on Jacoby locking up that spot, considering he's also looked pretty damn good in his own right throughout 2 games. At the running back position, there are 3 guys who are locked into the roster: Myles Gaskin, Salvon Ahmed, and Malcolm Brown. And then that's where things get a little confusing and spicy, because Miami's probably going to carry a 4th, and the battle to watch this weekend is going to be between Patrick Laird, Jordan Scarlett, and Jared Dokes. I personally think this is going to be Patrick Laird's last game in a Dolphins uniform because although he does everything well, there really isn't anything about him that is special. The ceilings are far higher for Jordan Scarlett and Jared Dokes, but that is what this weekend is for, again. So my money is on Dokes earning that final spot, not just because he was the 7th round pick this year, but he also has more natural talent. He needs to show an ability to protect the passer if he wants to get a spot on the final 53. Moving on to perhaps the most complicated position battle, it's in the wide receiver room. And that's a good thing because for the first time in a long time, the Dolphins actually have a surplus in talented wideouts. The guys who I think are guaranteed to make the roster, you got Will Fuller and Devontae Parker, both who have returned to practice, which is great news. Great to see them getting that timing set with Tua for the regular season. Of course, you got Jalen Waddle, Albert Wilson, and then I think Matt Collins and Jakeem Grant. And Hollins, for obvious reasons, his versatility as a big-bodied receiver is lacking in the room, and he's a great gunner on special teams, which makes him valuable. The same thing can be said about Jakeem, who, although I have beaten into the ground over the last few months, will admit I'm wrong. He has shown some improvement. I mean, damn, he hasn't dropped the ball so far in the preseason, and he's shown his value with the ball in his hands on a few of those quick passes, quick slants, out routes, as well as on punt returns. So it's going to be tough to unseat him and move him out of the roster, but there are a few guys whose skill set is compelling enough to consider. Guys like Kirk Merritt, Malcolm Perry, and of course, Preston Williams, who the team might be reserving a spot for anyway. I'm really interested to see if he does play and if the Dolphins do end up preserving a spot for him. Because, again, to be fair, he gets that spot, and the team could roll into the season with 7 guys at the position, but no way they likely keep more than that. That's why this weekend is really about Kirk Merritt and Malcolm Perry making a case for themselves, not just for the league to see their value, but the Dolphins coaching staff. For me, the best case situation is if Malcolm Perry or Kirk Merritt, either one of them or both, show enough promise and compelling tape where the Dolphins would not want to risk losing them. And if your only reason for keeping Jakeem Grant is his return ability, I would hope that having guys like Noah Igbenogany or Jalen Waddle for at least this season would make the investment in a younger, cheaper receiver worth it in Malcolm Perry or Kirk Merritt. I mean, look, Jakeem's physical tools, they make him extremely tantalizing. Blazing speed, great power for his size. He is strong and he can go up and get the ball. I mean, he showed it in New England on Monday night a few years ago. He is strong for his size, and he also has the right mindset to be a playmaker in the league. The problem is that he's had ample opportunities to take the reins, and he never really has. And maybe the staff feels this is the season, and all Malcolm Perry and Kirk Merritt can really do on Sunday afternoon is fight for a practice squad spot. But again, that's why we play the game. I think there's going to be a much clearer picture on the wideout position for how the season's going to go forward come Monday. We'll see how the snap counts are doled out, how the guys perform, and I think we'll have a better idea of who's going to earn a spot on the final 53. The tight end position is a little tricky as well. Obviously, Mike Gesicki, Durham Smythe, Adam Shaheen, and Hunter Long are all going to make the cut. They've shown enough, and the tight end spot is pretty pervasive in this scheme where you need to at least have 4. That makes sense. The real question is whether or not Miami's going to want to hold on to a 5th tight end because, again, some of these guys are kind of injury prone. Gesicki, Adam Shaheen. The obvious thought is that Cincinnati Carter will be the tight end, the 5th tight end who makes the club. The team signed him to a 2-year deal, and he does have special teams capabilities. But if there's one thing this regime has shown, it's that they have no problems moving on from a mistake, whether that be a draft pick or a free agent signing. I mean, hell, Robert Foster was signed this free agency and cut just last week. So, no, I don't think Cincinnati Carter has a spot lined up. I think there's going to be an open competition between him and Chris Myrick to see who sticks with the team. I'm not entirely sure, but if Myrick proves to be just as capable as Carter, then Miami could stick him on the practice squad, release Cincinnati Carter, and then open up a roster spot for another position. The offensive line is also extremely compelling because there are more than a few guys who are fighting for their NFL lives on Sunday. First, the linemen who are going to be on the final 53. Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, Michael Dieter, Robert Hunt, Liam Eichenberg, Jesse Davis. These are all guys we've seen play a lot. They're competing for those starting reps, so of course these are the guys who are going to make the roster. And then in my opinion, Matt Skura is also guaranteed to make the team because who else can snap the ball? If Michael Dieter goes down, you need a backup center. So that's 7 linemen, and I don't really know how many more spots the team has to give up, if any, but the guys who are going to be jockeying for those final spots or practice squad eligibility include our boy Larnell Coleman, Robert Jones, Greg Little, who was recently traded for, Adam Pankey, and Cameron Tom. My guess, the Dolphins try to keep Coleman and Robert Jones on the practice squad, and if Greg Little performs well, then he could get a spot on the final 53, or the team could also try to sneak him onto the practice squad as well. Remember, Derval Neto, who plays guard, he has a spot locked up because of his exemption, being a player from the International Pathway Program. Plus, he looks more than good enough to continue working with and investing development time into. The guys who have a tough chance of making the team on the offensive line and are likely suiting up for the last time in aqua and orange are the guys like Adam Pankey and Cameron Tom. Defensively, starting in the secondary, there are some who we know are making the cut. The X-Man himself, Byron Jones, Nick Needham, Justin Coleman, Noah Igbenogany, Jason McCourty. But a few other corners are going to be playing for spots on the final 53. The guy who I think who has shown the most promise, Trill Williams. But then there's other guys like Cravon LeBlanc, Jamal Perry, Javaris Davis, and Tino Ellis. It's going to be interesting to see the snap counts for each of those corners and who can perform or make those big plays to impress the coaching staff. The safeties are all but set in stone as well. You got Eric Rowe, Brandon Jones and Javon Holland, while the last two guys, Clayton Fejedelem and Nate Hawley, are also going to likely play their last game for the Dolphins. Frankly, there just isn't enough room in the DB room for Clayton Fejedelem and Nate Hawley, and neither of them are that great in special teams to really garner a spot. Next up, moving to the linebackers, Jerome Baker, Benardrick McKinney, Duke Riley, Sam Egwavin, I still don't know, Jalen Phillips, Brennan Scarlett, Andrew Van Ginkel, and maybe a Landon Roberts. Remember, all these linebackers kind of play a different role in the Dolphins' front seven. Jerome Baker is not playing the same position as Andrew Van Ginkel, but they are both linebackers. So some of the traditionally, what you would consider strong side linebackers, the ones who set the edge, work on the line and run defense, and then get to be on the field on more consistent pass rush downs and come off the edge. These are the guys like Kinky Ginky and Jalen Phillips. Also Brennan Scarlett. Then you have your other linebackers, the more traditional Mike linebackers, who would be standing more up, behind the defensive line, not as much on the defensive line. That's Jerome Baker, Benardrick McKinney, and Duke Riley. Now, there are linebackers across the board who need to play well to earn that spot. Vince Beagle is by no means a shoo-in, but he has shown enough film in the regular season to merit some rope. He's been struggling with injuries this offseason, so that could come to bite him. But other linebackers, right? Shaquem Griffin, Calvin Munson, and Josh Clemens, who I don't know if he's really made a play or been present, so it's going to be tough for him to make the squad. But some of these guys are going to need to step up and make plays, mainly Shaquem Griffin. Calvin Munson obviously had the interception, but based on the breakdown we've just done, I do not think there's room for him. Shaquem Griffin potentially could if he balls out, because he also has that special teams versatility. But again, I don't know. I don't know if he has any shot. I mean, he did force that fumble against Justin Fields in Chicago. So again, if he makes a few plays and shows some dynamicism, I guess that's the word, then maybe he can get a spot. But this weekend is huge for those guys, just like Griffin, looking to earn a title as a Miami Dolphins player for 2021. Moving to the defensive line, this is perhaps Miami's greatest strength in terms of depth. The guys making the team, you got Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, Zach Sealer, Adam Butler, and Emmanuel Ogbah, who you could also consider that hybrid edge defender and linebacker like Jalen Phillips, but we all know he's primarily used with his hand in the dirt in pass rush situations, because when compared to Jalen Phillips, you don't want Ogbah out in space covering a speedy receiver, while Phillips can go out to the flat, and I think Miami's going to use him a little more creatively. If this is going to be it, just those guys I mentioned, Wilkins, Davis, Sealer, Butler, and Ogbah, then honestly, Miami only has one true nose tackle in Raekwon Davis, and that's why it's going to be important to see if one of these depth guys who's going to play a lot of reps on Sunday can make an impact and show impressive enough play to generally garner attention. And these are the guys like veteran John Jenkins, Benito Jones, Jonathan Ledbetter, Jason Strobridge, and Tyshawn Render. Some are practice squad eligible guys like Tyshawn Render and Benito Jones, while other guys like John Jenkins, they need to put some impressive tape out there to stay in the league. Personally, I do think Jenkins has a place in the NFL. It's hard to find big athletic guys. He's pretty quick for his size, who can both plug a hole in the run defense and also be pretty decent against the pass. He's absolutely worth a rotational role in the NFL, but speaking to the Dolphins' depth at the position, he could be on the outside looking in. And lastly, the specialists. Not too complicated. Blake Ferguson at long snapper, Michael Pilardi at punter, and damn, he's looked really good. And then, of course, the god himself, Jason Sanders at place kicker. Where things get spicy is at the return spot, because depending on who does this job, the rest of the roster could look a little different, because if the returner is going to be Jakeem Grant, then younger receivers likely aren't going to make the team in Kirk Merritt and Malcolm Perry. If the return guy is Noah Benogany or Jalen Waddle, then maybe there is room for getting a receiver or another cornerback. Regardless, taking a step back, it really is cool to see all the talent that Chris Grier and company have managed to assemble. When compared to just a few off seasons ago, this roster has depth across the board, as well as a healthy mix of veteran leadership and young talent. I cannot wait for the Sunday afternoon from a football junkie perspective. And the best part is that the Cincinnati Bengals announced that Joe Burrow is going to actually be playing a few drives to help shake off the rust and get his feet wet. And considering that Miami's sitting all their starters, it's kind of like a Dolphins-Falcons situation. Then Burrow should look good, right? If Burrow's as good as we think he is, he should dominate. But it's going to be really a great test for the guys on this defense looking to impress, because they're going against the former number 1 overall pick who's coming out trying to make something happen. You know he's going to be targeting T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Mixon's going to be playing some. You know they're going to be going at it because the Dolphins kind of kicked their butt last year as well. So it's going to be great for these defensive guys on the bubble trying to make a play and make a statement. So which bubble player are you most intrigued for? Who have you had on your eye and think, hey, this is the weekend. They got to show out. I want them to show out. They need to make the team. For me, the competition that I'm going to be most intrigued by, of course, the wide receiver position. I think most of us are excited to see that shake out because I love Kirk Merritt. And honestly, I do love Malcolm Perry's game as well. I think both could serve as weapons for this offense this year. Those two guys are going to be featured very heavily this weekend. And honestly, Kyle Loxley, who I have failed to mention and kind of written off, but all three of them are going to have a shot to make a name for themselves in the National Football League.
We haven't met Brian Flores yet. We haven't had him on. We've been chasing him to try to get him on the show. How is he? What is he like? What is he like?
He's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. He's he's one of those guys that are just, he's tough-nosed. He's a player's coach. He loves his players, but he expects the most out of them too, and then just a guy that will adjust, and you figure it out as you go, and you would play for him, definitely.
Yeah.
You would love playing for him.
He seems like it. He seems like he's just no nonsense. He's going to tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, which is what the best coaches do.
Yeah. And then they do it, and then they're also, they're hard, but then they're fun too at the same time.
It's Miami. You can't help but have fun down there.
You can't have fun down there. Yeah, man. You're down here all the time, aren't you?
Exactly.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Timothy Ritchie and Brian Guger, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the continued support, and please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that the show's available on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and of course on YouTube. If you are listening on Apple, really, really appreciate it if you could leave us a review. Some guy left a 1-star review because I was like, I want to see Justin Fields do well. I was like, damn, I still love the Dolphins. You don't got to give me a 1-star review, but hey, it's fine. I'd appreciate if you can compensate for that in Apple reviews. Continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram @PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. Until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.